Hello and welcome to the Business Pulse with Creston Pedabu, the podcast that explores practical strategies, insights, and solutions to help your business thrive in a constantly evolving landscape. I am Judah Digwe and I'll be your host today. Today we dive into Nigeria's tax landscape, exploring the evolving policies, regulatory shifts, as well as expectations that shift the fiscal environment for businesses and individuals alike. To shed light on this subject, Adeyemi Afolabi-Smith, a senior manager within the tax consulting landscape here in Creston Pedabu, as well as Stella Iwala, a manager within the same practice. These two individuals help businesses navigate Nigeria's complex tax landscape, offering tailored strategies as well as compliance solutions to help businesses remain profitable. Adeyemi and Stella, it is wonderful to have you here.
Thank you for having us.
Let us get straight into it. Tax compliance in Nigeria can be a minefield. What would you say are the biggest challenges businesses face today?
Okay. Thank you for having me once again. I think you're quite correct. The truth is there's a lot of intricacies when it comes to tax administration in Nigeria. And what you'd observe is that lots of times there are all on an annual basis, you have amendments that are made to the tax laws, right? Which is being done annually by virtue of the Finance Act. And then companies struggle to actually being able to infuse it into that process, being able to keep up with those challenges. Because those challenges do not just span across just one tax, for instance. It spans across all the taxes. So that keeps, companies trying to, they struggle a lot of times to be able to keep up with all of those, regulations in the tax space. And interestingly, within the next couple of months, you would have a new tax bill, a Nigerian tax bill, which is a new tax administration in entirety, which means that companies that are yet to make up with the last regulations would have to find a way to actually keep up with the present one, which would span to the next couple of years until you have reasons to amend them by virtue of Finance Act on an annual basis.
Okay, very interesting insights. So going to Stella now. We talk about tax audits and investigations. What are these really about?
Okay, tax audits and investigations are activities carried out by the tax authorities just to ensure that taxpayers are always on their feet and are also meeting up with their tax obligations. Tax audits are just to review what the client has originally filed with the authorities and ensuring that they are accurate and complete. While investigations are more intensive, they are typically just to ensure that there are no cases of suspicion of fraud or any form of significant discrepancies. So that is what gives rise to tax investigations. But they are not necessarily bad on their own because they help companies, comply voluntarily. It also helps the government, to generate more revenue and also just to ensure complete transparency in the tax system. So that is basically what tax audits and investigations are.
Okay, so in your practice so far, what would you consider most challenging within these aspects of tax audit as well as, the aspect of investigations for the businesses that you've worked with so far?
Most of the time, the most significant part of the challenge that companies experience has to do with proper documentation, keeping adequate documentations, because the taxman is interested in documents to actually substantiate that these expenses were incurred or that certain things were actually carried out in the course of the year. And for the taxman, his hope and his prayers are that those documents should not be available, so that government can use that impact to actually levy some tax liabilities on you in order to cushion for the revenue of the economy. So most of the time you have challenges with having to keep adequate documentation, and also the timeline also matters. You have instances where some companies struggle with space, office space and all of that, and then some are being destroyed, some are being archived. And in the process of a tax audit or investigation, is that very difficult to be able to provide them to the tax authorities. And the moment you don't provide, as far as the taxman is concerned, they don't exist. So that's more like the major part of it.
Okay, so there's a lot of confusion about withholding tax, right? what would you say are the confusion or the things that people struggle with when we talk about withholding tax?
Okay. Very importantly, I must say this. When it comes to withholding tax, a lot of businesses or individuals have the orientation that it's another type of tax in entirety. It's not. It's just an advance payment of the income tax you're meant to pay, either as a company or as an individual. But the most significant part of it is that some companies do not even understand that they have the obligation to deduct those taxes and then remit it to government. And some have also not deducted because the vendors are saying, no, you can't deduct from my invoice without any tax exemption, maybe by virtue of sentiment or thinking that, oh, you're going to erode my margin by the time you deduct and all of that. There are some strict regulations and penalties that come with these obligations. You actually have an obligation to deduct withholding tax on payments that you make to vendors. And the moment you do that, on or before the 21st day of the subsequent month, you should actually remit to the relevant tax authority. It could be federal, it could be the state. And here is the most intriguing part of it. For those withholding taxes, some companies are not even aware that they have doing tax credits in their favor. So what it means is that at the time of paying taxes, they just go away to part with the entire cash without taking cognizance of the credit that they had before. So what that means is that they're going to have a lot of strain on their cash flow, and they are just going to be trying to mess up with their daily cash commitments. So those are some of the peculiarities that come with this withholding taxes. Because by virtue of the law, as long as you're not exempted from paying taxes, whatever invoice is sent to any company or individual, depending on the nature of transaction, you should actually withhold taxes, being an advance payment of that vendor's invoice till the person needs to now fulfill his or her own obligation, either as an entity or as an individual.
Okay, fantastic. I know with this insight that you've shared, most of our viewers would, some of the, gray areas that they had would have been cleared. Now, let's speak about technology. There's a lot of conversations around tax Promax. How does this help with your tax practice?
Okay, tax Promax is a very convenable step taken by the FIRS for automation and embracing technology. However, it's still evolving. Businesses are still struggling with how to upload their returns online, how to reconcile payments that have been made through various channels. So, it is still evolving, and I believe that with time, we'll get into a better space with them. For us here at Crescent Pedable, we assist and help our clients navigate these challenges. We help them, if it's errors, help them correct errors, help them with the online filing and any other issues that come up when they experience such.
Okay. So, Adeyemi, I know there's a tax bills with the National Assembly currently. What are the implications for businesses, and what's the firm, Crescent Pedable, doing about this?
Okay, the Nigerian tax bill, we all refer to it currently as the NTB, is coming with a lot of amendments. Over time, we've had complaints, from taxpayers, from industrial leaders, talking about the impact of some of these tax laws on their operations. And so what has been done is that most of those things have been refined to reflect the economic reality of things, and to make sure that the government also does not lose revenue in any form. Now, this Nigerian tax bill carries a lot of details. Before now we have like 16 provisions that have now been submerged into one document. Before now, you'd have the company income tax act separately, the value-added tax act separately, the capital gains tax act separately. Now they are all just a subset of one bill. So what that means is that you have the entire bill speaking to tax operation in the economy. And then again, for us as a firm, we've also started to infuse those processes, the content of those bills, into keeping our clients ahead, letting them know how this would impact them by the time it's actualized or is signed into bill. At the stage where we are now, there's every likelihood that the president is going to assent, of course, because you've had all of the video stages passed, you've had the harmonization done, joint harmonization by both the state and federal hams, and then what is left is also for the president to put assent, right? And the moment the president assents to that, it becomes a law. So it's a good time to start, on learning and relearning. Whatever it is that you've known before, even as a tax consultant or as a company, now is the time to unlearn and relearn, because some of those provisions, some of them are still the same, but there are some major amendments that are actually pointed towards helping business increase compliance, encouraging companies to, fulfill their civic obligations, and also to make it easy for businesses to survive within the economy.
So, Stella, now, Ademi has already talked about the Nigerian tax bill that is out there. Within your practice currently, what steps have you taken with respect to educating your clients?
Okay, so on an ongoing basis, we keep them abreast. We send them newsletters. We send them information that come up, and we've also done some form of simulations to keep them abreast of what is about to come, so that it doesn't take them by surprise when the bill is eventually passed.
Okay. Right, there you have it. That was Adeyemi Afolabi Smith, as well as Stella Iwala, throwing insights into what, tax consultancy is about, speaking about issues around withholding tax, the role of technology in tax consultancy, and what businesses are expected to do when it comes to issues around tax. Adeyemi and Stella, it was a pleasure having you here.
Well,
Thanks for having us.
great to be here, too.